All right, I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
Bring it.
Now the hot seat. Okay.
Within your and Becca's relationship, your and Fitz's relationship, particularly in the outdoors, do you think you have any like personality traits that has both maybe nourished the partnership in some ways and maybe in other ways served as a detriment?
Hmm. I think that's a good question. I would be super curious to hear how Becca would answer it.
I think personality traits that have worked well for us when we've been outdoors in the backcountry is, I mean, some of it's personality, some of it's just like we have a shared vision of like, yes, we see this big goal, we understand what it takes to make that happen. I think that we also approach trip planning in like a similar way, although we have different roles in what we do, but that we like to go in somewhat organized. We're not so much like full fly by the seat of your pants.
We share a lot in common, like Becca and I think in a lot of ways. Like we aren't like two yin and yangs or like super complementary personalities. Is I think we both are not afraid to try very hard and like take weight. And sometimes that's to a detriment. We had to grow and learn how to like be able to like share weight or give weight when you were struggling.
Fitz has the ultimate like confidence and like, yes, we can do this. And I am definitely like more cautious where I'm like, well, what can I do this? And like want to assess my skills and make sure that I feel like, yes, this is something that I can do.
Was Fitz sandbagging you a common occurrence then?
Yes. Which, I mean, in some ways was great because I got to do some really cool things, or I've done some really cool things. And sometimes it ended in tears. And that was my own, that was more like my dealing with myself necessarily than like the situation that he put us in, but more, dealing with my own emotions around things about being able to do something, not being able to do something.
I think one of our strengths was that we were both fairly like highly emotionally intelligent and could kind of tell when somebody needed help or how to do that in a kind way. And yeah, I don't know. For us, that's been a really magical part of our relationship.
Well, I ask because, the story we're telling today ultimately revolves around that kind of theme, right? Like, can your strong suit lead you to any kind of pitfalls or blind spots, especially when navigating the outdoors? And how do you resolve or
The answer is yes.
grow from that? And yeah, I mean, I think the question is like pertinent in any kind of partnership or relationship,
Yeah.
whether that's romantic or not, right?
I think 100%. I think that's so true. Is this your story?
This is a story of mine.
When does this story start, Marco?
So this story starts back in October of 2020 with myself and my girlfriend, Lena Ohlson, taking a road trip eastbound from San Diego to Utah. And before this moment, we had gone on tons of climbing and hiking trips. But looking back, I felt like this time was a bit different because it was so spur of the moment. We almost did it in a panic to kind of escape the stay-at-home monotony that the pandemic brought upon, right? And I can speak for myself. I was very eager for some sort of adventure, and I wanted to bring Lena along for the ride. And ultimately, this is a story of love, misfortune, and coming to terms with my own blind spot.
I'm like, am I going to laugh or cry in this story, Marco? Or both?
Maybe both. I'm Marco Siler-Gonzales.
I'm Fitzco Hall.
You're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. The plan was we would hit Zion National Park, and then on the way back, we would hit Red Rocks and climb with my cousin for a few days. I had never been to Zion, and I pretty much did zero research into the park.
I had no idea that Zion was as much of a system as it was. I truly had no idea what to expect with it. And I honestly wasn't even planning. I didn't think we were planning on going to Zion at first. But yeah, we ended up there.
Like the only research I had done was like finding a cool BLM spot and like finding like this beautiful camping area we can go for free. But as far as like the park itself, no Googling whatsoever. Like I didn't know what the system was at all.
I think that's hilarious because I feel like Zion of almost all the parks has the biggest system and is kind of like the most complicated these days. I've kind of had a pretty good run with Zion through the years. Like I was there when there was no system and it really wasn't that crazy even. Like it wasn't that like big of a problem. And then I was there when it started to become a problem. And then I was there when they started implementing the system. Like I haven't been in quite some time now, but I imagine the system's only that much more so these days because I know that it got crazy in those 2020 years.
So pretty much like the morning of, like we wake up at our campsite. The general plan of the day is to go into Zion and do some, hiking around, do some adventuring. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I should Google Zion National Park and see like what the deal is with getting in. I should maybe figure this out. So I realized, quickly that there's a whole shuttle system, a whole ticket reservation system that you need to like wake up at 6 a.m. to reserve. Otherwise, you don't really have access to like the deeper parts of the park. So I was like, oh shit, okay, well, let's just drive in as far as we can. I'm sure there's some like accessible trails we can get to and we'll just, wing it and have fun. We found like a sandy horse trail and it connected to like the lower Emerald Pools, which is a very touristy area, like hundreds of people were already there. It's a very established trail. It was fun. It was beautiful, but it was packed with other people and I wasn't really getting the sensation that I was kind of looking for as far as like an adventure, We finish the day, we come back to the campsite, we have dinner, and then it's almost like a trope at this point in Lena and I's relationship that whenever we're in a new place, I kind of just start to like obsessively scan All Trails app and like look for a cool trail.
He will spend and just hyperfixate on the All Trails app as I patiently go about my day. And then he'll kind of come back and lobby for something.
So this is exactly what I did. I like just spent probably an hour on All Trails through Zion National Park, finding like, good moderate trail, maybe away from the crowds, maybe we'll, with some pools of water or something that sounds nice, right? I come across Cascade Falls. And so here's the description from All Trails. 2.2 mile and outback trail, generally considered moderately challenging route. Great for hiking. Unlikely you'll encounter many other people while exploring. Most of it is not a true slot canyon, however, it is deep and narrow in places. Completely off-trail canyoneering route to Cascade Falls. There is no trail in this canyon. Expect scrambling, rock hopping, and route finding adventure. And I was like, boom, perfect. No people, kind of off the grid. It's only 2.2 miles out and back, so it's impossible to get lost. Let's just send it.
The internet told you so.
The intention we had set for the day, which was to try to avoid crowds in one of the most crowded tourist destinations and national parks.
From the National Park Service website, in Zion, there's about 130 search and rescue calls. That was in 2022. That day when we were approaching Cascade Falls, I kind of had like a vague notion in my head of like, I've heard some horror stories about Zion, like people get stuck in slot canyons, flash flooding, people going the wrong way and then just getting totally lost. It's not the most hospitable terrain, right? Especially if you kind of like get in over your head. But also I was like, it's a 2-mile out and back trail. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm pretty confident in my like navigation and hiking skills. I think we'll be okay.
There's always this underlying deep sense of trust I have with him because we've been on so many trails throughout these years and it's so real. Like it's very rare that he forgets where he is, doesn't know where he is. It's such a through line of our relationship. I can just sit back and trust that he's got us. And that really is the most consistent element of our dynamic when we're on trail systems together. It's a luxury for me, for sure, because I get to just la-di-da-di-da, just kind of get into my zone and he's got it. And I think he really enjoys kind of being a guide in a sense.
So the start of Cascade Falls Trail, it's really unclear. I mean, it's just off the side of the road. I don't really remember seeing any cairns. It's kind of just this like wide swath of like layered sloping sandstone that eventually narrows into like a sandy bed leading into the canyon. And about an hour and a half in, we eat some lunch, having a good time. But I don't really know where the end point is. I don't know how far we've gone into it. And like it's already a little later in the day. So Lena and I decide like, let's just call it, we'll head back. It's already been great. So we'll just like head back down to the car.
So basically, we had like a perfect day.
Up until that point, it was great. We were taking pictures, being silly. I mean, like, just kind of seemed like any other relaxed hike that we often take, you know? Have you ever felt that sensation of like being on an unfamiliar path, and then when you're headed back, it just seems like a totally different trail?
Yeah, I have.
Like you're just seeing the trail in a totally different perspective, so it just seems like almost like a separate place entirely.
I've definitely had that experience of just being like, this is strange, even though you're like, I'm in the same canyon, I'm in the same place, but like, just the way, it's like the flip side version of it, just somehow you interpret it differently.
So basically, we're headed back, and I kind of hit this like seemingly pretty benign fork in the trail, which I don't really remember on the way there. And the left side seems like more squeezed, and the right side looks more open. So I just assumed that the right way was the correct way to go, just because it looked like bigger, basically. And I was like, oh, we must have just come that way. So I go right around some bushes, and I'm kind of like funneled into this small ledge. And the ledge has this like short, steep funnel section. And it's almost like a 4-foot slide that if you were to fall or slip, you would basically slide over a lip and fall 10 feet down into this like pool of dark green sludge with like flies everywhere. And without really thinking, I just kind of get down on all fours and I just like scramble across the funnel, which is doable, but like I'm also like pretty comfortable scrambling. So Lena comes around the corner and she looks at the sandy funnel leading into the 10-foot pool of death juice. And she looks back at me and she's like, are you sure that this is the way back? And I look at her and I'm like, oh, 100%. This is the way to go.
So the Pacific Northwest in the summer it's why I live here. During the summer, I completely rage. Running, mountain biking, climbing, maybe 2 times a day. I get super hungry. I've been drinking kachava after a long ride or a training session as a way to nourish my body after trying hard. I find that adding it in to my routine, it either helps my like afternoon crazy hunger crush or when I've skipped breakfast. It's incredible. Kachava's whole body meal shake keeps your mind and body nourished all day. With 2 scoops of kachava, you get 85 superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. So not only am I getting 25 grams of plant-based protein, I'm also getting adaptogens and super greens at the same time. Kachava has 5 flavors to choose from, and I'm really digging the chai. Added bonus, there's no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. I love it when I look on the bag and I know all the ingredients in there. Like, that's dope. Fuel your game at Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use the code DIARIES for 15% off your next order. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com. Code DIARIES for 15% off. We'll throw a link in the show notes. All right, I have been waiting for a really long time for the sun to come out here in the Pacific Northwest. We got like a little blip a few weeks ago and then went away, but it's coming. I know it. And I know when it shows up, I'll put on sunscreen and then I'll immediately sweat it off and then I'll get sunburned because like I haven't seen the sun in like 9 months or something. And when my skin gets redder or burned or windburned, that's when I use Mayday After Sun Cream from Terns. Mayday is designed for when you've been overexposed to the elements. And I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate. It has 3 times Terns' special marine-derived complex that speeds up skin regeneration and healing. It helps minimize peeling and replenishes moisture. And that makes my skin look better, feel better, quicker. When there's so many things to think about, having a go-to product that's good for my skin is awesome. I put it on at night, Go to bed, don't think about it. Super easy. After Sun shouldn't be an afterthought. Use the code DIRTBAG to get 25% off your first order at turns.com. We'll put a link in the show notes and you can try Turns for yourself. Check it out. The Diaries is supported by Oboes. At Oboes, it's all about hiking and the passion for moving your body in nature. Their name Oboes is actually a fun little contraction of outside Bozeman, which is where the team works and creates. They use the mountains as a natural laboratory. While big shoot companies chase volume and trends and gimmicks, Oboes has stayed on trail and on point, refining and building the perfect tools for bipedal travel right in their backyard. If you've got a big summer ahead, check out the Bridger Ridge, their updated take on a classic leather hiker. I've been rocking the Catabatic LT out in the woods. It's a rugged sneaker style built for moving quickly, even when I'm not. Oboes footwear. Love hiking.
My whole body knew that we were going the wrong way. But I think because we default to, oh, he's got it. Like, he knows where we're going. This is his territory. Like, he's got this. And I do have so much trust in him. Always, especially on trails. But I knew, like, deeply in my now, like, in my intuition, I knew better that we were not going the right way. And when I said it, and he kind of was like, no. Like, his logic, his, like, I think boy brain, for lack of a better explanation, kind of did take over. And was like, no, like, this is the right way, we got this.
My thinking was at the time, like, I'm on a ledge across from the funnel, and I'm thinking that the ledge just goes around the corner and leads back to the trail. And so I convinced Lena to come join me on the other side of the funnel. She gets on all fours, and I kind of like assist her from the other side, kind of grabbing her arm and her back and kind of like pull her towards me. And now we're both on this ledge. We've both crossed the sandy funnel. We are standing over a pit of green sludge that would be a 10-foot fall. And I realize that this is not the way. Because if we keep going across the ledge, it basically doesn't go anywhere. It just falls into another deep slot canyon. And then our backs are against like a 6-foot wall, basically.
At what point did you let her know that you're stuck? Like, or is it just dead obvious to everybody?
It's pretty immediate. I'm like, oh shit, no, this is not the way. In order to get back to the trail, we need to go back over the funnel slide to get back to the trail. Basically, we need to go back the way we came. Lena is not stoked on this idea.
And you've just told her you're 100% confident this is the way.
Yes. And now I'm 100% confident that we need to get off this ledge and back to the main trail. She is not a fan of this idea because she was pretty freaked out getting across the funnel in the first place, and she had to do it with my assistance. I reassure her, it's fine, I will help you get back over, but we need to go back across the way we came so we can get back to the main trail, or else we're stuck here. She reluctantly agrees. She gets on all fours, and as soon as she starts to try to cross the sandy slide, I understand that she probably will not be able to do it. Because now it's in her head of falling, and I think that's affecting her ability to like actually make the move quickly, and she begins to kind of freak out a little bit. And at this point, I'm on the side, kind of on the flat ledge, and my arms are still kind of around her.
It was literally me and my strength holding me from falling into that, and that knowing, like, there's not much keeping me other than my own self. Like, it's me and me. Marco's over here, he's trying his best to hold me up, but ultimately, let's keep it real. It's me keeping myself from falling. So that fear, it was such a practice to keep myself calm. The practice of meditations and deep breaths and all that. I do remember going to that place of just like, all right, stay focused, stay calm. You're gonna be all right. But ultimately, just that feeling of like kind of feeling my legs starting to shake and my arms starting to quiver.
But as she moves more and more across, she kind of compromises her body positioning more and more, to the point where her foot slips. She grabs hold really quick. That makes her freak out even more. She flips over onto her back, so now her stomach is up, and she's literally in a position to slide down this thing, like as if you were just on a regular slide. She assumes a slide position, which is, so it's just going poorly. And at this point, I'm basically just bracing her from the side. And I realize that, like, if she were to, like, move on her own accord and misjudge a foot or misjudge balance, there's a huge possibility that she does fall and I will not be able to hold her. And so with my arms braced around her, she starts to cry.
The scariest moment was when I looked into his eyes and he looked scared. And I've never seen him look scared like that. And so that was like, okay, we are indeed in a terrible situation.
She's in this very compromised position that she did not ask for. And then it really dawns on me, oh shit, we are now in a scenario where we are stuck on a ledge and the possibilities of getting out are now, choices are slimming down basically. She's now faced with like the consequences of like my decisions. And I was putting her in a situation where she could have been seriously hurt for no other reason than I wanted something more adventurous and I wanted to like feed my ego, you know? So I kind of look at her and I tell her, okay, on 3, I'm going to pull you back over to my side and we will figure out something else to do. So I count to 3 and I basically just yank her over onto my side of the ledge and we're back where we started basically. So at this point I begin to actually like seriously reassess like our options and what we have to do here. I mean, we have no reception. We have like a bottle of water, maybe some trail mix. The only people that we saw on the trail was a couple coming out as we were coming in, and it was already late in the day. So I highly doubt that like anyone else would be making their way on the trail that day. And at this point also it's getting later in the afternoon and the sun sets in about an hour and a half or so. Can't go forward into the sludge, can't go left into the sludge. The sandy funnel is not really an option, it seems like. And so I kind of turned my back to the wall that we're up against. And I noticed that over the lip, 6 feet up, there's about a 2-foot plank of rock that seems to go left and up and around to the trail, basically. So I tell Lena, look, I can boost you up onto the ledge. I can then climb it myself. And then we'll both be on the ledge and we can walk back on the plank back to the main trail. Because I can see now, like, the plank of rock definitely leads up and over back to the trail. Like, there's no question. And there's no sandy funnel we have to deal with. So I hoist her up. She mantles over the lip. I assess the holds myself. I climb it, kind of wail over. And now we're both on the ledge. And we are able to walk back 6-7 feet back to the main trail.
Was she angry with you or like visibly upset? Anything like that?
I don't think she was angry with me. I think we were both just a little like shaken, you know? And I can speak for myself here. I was feeling shame, I think. And I remember telling Lena, like, I think maybe it was later in that trip or maybe it was that same day that like, please don't tell your parents that happened. I did not want them to know that like I had almost gotten their daughter trapped or possibly worse in the slot canyon in Zion. And, you know, the whole trip was my idea. The trail was my idea. Turning right instead of left was my idea. And I just kind of felt like ashamed of putting Lena in that position in the first place.
He's strong. Like, he's a climber. This is his life. He's dedicated so much of his life to existing on trails. As a dancer, that is not my comfort zone. Like, and that is not kind of like where I feel strong is on trails and being able to, you know, scramble. I can do it and it's so fun to me. But as I was listening to him telling that story, I was like, yeah, that's kind of where my shame lied, was I'm getting us into this situation because I'm not strong enough to keep up. Meanwhile, he's over on the other side. I got her into this situation because I feel this need from the egoic standpoint. I feel this need to get away from crowds and do the coolest trail and, you know, find the most epic adventure. And so it was kind of funny to hear him, to know that we were both off in our own worlds, you know, fighting for our lives and then just feeling this pit of self-shame. It just happened so fast. It was such an accident. And there was no anger. There was no fight. There was no, you know, you got us in this. And he's never, ever, ever been the kind of person to be like, hey, maybe don't tell someone about this. You know, that was the first time in our entire partnership. He was like, I'm not ready for people to know about this. So it's interesting that it was shocking for me to hear this time around the shame, because I should have clocked it. And God, I'm sure we had conversations about it. It's so hazy at this point, but yeah, that was really funny to hear, to remember him telling me, don't tell your parents.
So you're in a situation where it's like, here's my set of decisions. They have now impacted this person that I really care for. And when I was listening to you talking, there was a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is like a metaphor for love, right? Because the truth of it is that there are a lot of times when we find ourselves in tough situations, right? And where one person's decision actually has a really big impact on two people's lives. And getting better at that is something that like a lot of us have to grow into as partners. We have to like learn and develop, right? Like you kind of start to understand that your own choices have an impact on your partners, right? And you know, like a lot of us have tendencies or personality quirks, and sometimes they're like what makes us great. Sometimes they're even like what our partner loves about us. But at some point, you also can realize that you have to sort of temper that down a little bit, that those traits can have some unforeseen impacts on the person you really care about.
No, that's true. I mean, I can be pretty hard-headed about what I want to do. And this was pretty much a perfect example through and through of that. Usually doesn't get us in a situation where we're facing down a death pit of green slimy juice, but I don't know, life is funny that way where it can lead you down there sometimes.
Would your parents have freaked out had you told them this story?
You know what's actually interesting? So I was back with my mom in California when Marco called me to say, hey, I think we're going to tell this story. And she was like, wait, what? Like, I had, because my mom and I are so close. I tell her everything. And it was hilarious for me to be like, wait, I didn't tell you this story. And she was like, what are you talking about? Almost died in Zion. Wait, what? And I was like, because we went back to her house. After that trip, we went back to her house. And yeah, that story, it never came up. And so that was a detail I completely forgot. Marco just telling me, please don't say anything. But yeah, so getting to tell her this now, 5 years later, she was tripping out. She was like, how did I not know this? That sounds terrifying. And it's so interesting because we're recording this now, but I also feel like there's still so much to unpack with Marco about this. I think because I'm, especially, you know, only this morning I got to hear him tell that story from start to finish. Yeah, there's a lot that I still want to ask him about and kind of like unpack in real time. I also kind of feel like I came into this interview with questions myself about like him and why that was so significant to him and why.
Go grab him, bring him over, and ask him that question.
Marco, get over here. We have more questions for you. Because what I'm telling Fitz right now is, he's giggling. Do you want to have a headphone? Sure. What I'm talking to him about right now is how we're kind of recording this interview in a moment in time where I still have a lot of questions for you as far as like, we really did not unpack that in real time. Like we really did not, you did not tell me like how much shame and guilt you were holding in the moment. I had no idea that this was something that you would look back on from the lens of your ego kind of coming into play and getting us, you being solely responsible for getting us into a scary situation and holding so much guilt. I really had no idea that was from the lens in which you're kind of telling the story.
Well, that's why I always didn't want to talk about it when we brought it up.
Yeah.
In the last few years.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'd be like, oh, remember when that happened in Zion? And I'd be like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it.
Shut it down.
Yeah. I would shut it down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That kind of like shame or guilt or whatever came into play more like sometime afterwards when I would reflect on the event. Because then the realities kind of like would set in. Of just like, you know, you start thinking about and start overanalyzing the situation. But I think immediately afterwards, I was just like happy that we got out of it and we're both okay, you know, and we had like a great rest of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
When it would come up with friends, like, would you sort of be like, ha ha, but secretly inside be dying a little bit?
Well, we wouldn't even talk about it with friends. Like, no one really knows the story.
It's true. Not a lot of people know the story. Somewhere along the line, I think, because you were asking me to not tell people. So I think at a certain point, I probably just, that registered in my brain, I just shut it down even in my body, even though it's my initial reaction to be a storyteller. I feel like I'm very like, we got a story, let me tell you something, and be super animated, you know. So but I think because I did feel Marco's reaction, just being like, don't, it just like got shut down. So we're kind of unearthing this, which is why I'm almost like needing him to like rehash it with me in real time, because and that's why I've had a lot of anxiety about doing this episode, because I'm like, my memory is so, because we kind of haven't kept the story alive.
Yeah.
We've kind of put the fire, like squashed it, I think. Yeah, because you haven't wanted. But it's just interesting to remind myself it's because, yeah, he was carrying guilt and shame over it. So we didn't really keep the story alive. So it's a little hazy, but it was in fact maybe arguably one of the most kind of adrenaline-filled, potentially very dangerous moments of our relationship. I can't think of anything else that we've gone into like that. That was that crazy.
Yeah. Because even when we've done
a lot of hiking and
a lot of climbing and hiking together,
yeah.
and that's always been like pretty PG-13, you know, level safety. Like we got ropes and helmets, but that was just like, oh shit, no one knows we're here. And like, we're just like in this fucking pit. Like, this is not good.
Marco telling this story and then having to like share your retelling with it. You've kind of like told it a couple times now.
Mm-hmm.
Does it take away any of those feelings of like shame or embarrassment or guilt, or does it get easier when you sort of actually start to say things out loud?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it feels better to like talk about it. Shocker, guys. If you talk about your feelings, it helps.
Message.
Yeah.
Okay, can I just
huge,
make a
huge headline?
And I think that's how we end the diaries, right?
Yeah.
Like, you talk about your feelings and it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Close scene.
I think Marco just set this up to essentially have us all hold space for him. I think this is all just a plot, like somehow a sneaky ploy for Marco to have a therapy session with all of us here witnessing. A long-standing needed session. Because who knew?
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, do you feel lighter, Marco? Do you feel lighter having this be witnessed?
Yeah.
By Fitz and myself?
Yeah, feel later.
Thanks, Marco and Lena, for sharing your story. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or a story lead, please give us a shout. You can email us at editor@ducktapethenbeer.com. Thanks to the folks who have recently become Diaries Plus members. You are powering this show right now. We could not do it without you. And thank you to those who continue to support us year after year. It's a difference between having the show be here and not. So thank you. Want another way to help? Write us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps others find the show. Music today from Dame Asu, Marcus Huber, Walter Bowie, and Brendan O'Connell. The tracks are courtesy of the artists or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nice Cotto composed our theme song. You can find the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced by Marco Siler-Gonzales and me, with additional production help from Skylar Perwins. Illustration by Walker Call. Becca Cahal is our executive producer. You've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in.